said Mark 12 will lift his chest up. We up now, fuck who next up. Get you X'd out for a check stub. If we in your lobby, know we catching bodies, then we on our way to the next dub. I got the place like a Mento, let off one shot, but it killed four. I extend the magazine, then attach the beam, aiming at his beans, feeling pinto. Don't call a shot unless you hit those. We running this shit to the race over. On my Cali shit, cause we the best man, we the West Clan, it's the takeover.
Please don't fuck with my game, stay in your lane. Don't make me call a domain. I put a ping on the target, he don't want the body. That boy gon' aim for the brain. I put my money on Sky, they empty the clip. You get it, she making it rain. I'm going hard for my gang, it's all about West, and we don't know no other name. Please don't fuck with my gang, stay in your lane. Don't make me call a domain. I put a ping on the target, he don't want the body. That boy gon' aim for the brain. I put my money on Sky, they empty the clip. You get it, she making it rain. I'm going hard for my gang, it's all about West, and we don't know no other name. We keep the awesome in toes, we fillin' with hoes. Ooh, I'm feeling like Moe. Nah, they gon' remember our names just like dope. Now they trade boots.
Combatant down. Dead. Very dead.
Michael Jordan's nephew was a bucket just like him. During his senior season, Justin Jordan averaged 17.5 points per game and led Davidson Day School to a conference championship. Winning is in his blood. Tanaya Morant is the sister of NBA superstar Ja. She puts on for the family. The 2023 point guard has D1 offers, but is yet to commit. Hold up a second. Y'all want to feel old? Do you remember this little boy? Well, that's Chris Paul Jr., son of CP3, plays and looks like him. Rajon Rondo, another legendary point guard, has a son named Pierre. I'm sure you remember that picture from the bubble. He's getting buckets now. His vision is amazing, just like his pops. The ones that hate me the most look just like me. You tell me what that means. Austin and Miles look just like him, but hopefully they don't hate him. Tyler Herro's little brothers are elite guards that play in Wisconsin. Matt Barnes has 8th grade twins named Isaiah and Carter. They play with similar tenacity that their father played with, but they can shoot lights out. LeBron's sons have been in the spotlight for years now, but just recently they made more headlines. Bronny James, his oldest, has committed to USC. Meanwhile, I heard Bryce is 6'11". Nah, I'm just playing. He went crazy in Phoenix last weekend though. Future is looking bright for the James gang. Jamal Crawford's 7th grade son, JJ Crawford, plays just like him. He's got handles and range. He can shoot lights out. And of course, he's in a super underrated hoop city, Seattle. 3-time NBA All-Star Gilbert Arenas has 2 kids that can hoop. First you have Elijah Arenas, who plays for 16U Compton Magic.
It works.
And then you got his daughter, Azalea Arenas. She plays for Team Why Not Premier. And this past weekend, she won Queen of the Court at OTE down in Atlanta, Georgia. Cayenne Anthony is the son of Hall of Famer Carmelo, and he has a deep bag, just like him. He plays for Team Melo on the EYBL circuit. The 16-year-old puts on for his pops. And I would be remiss to not put Gigi Bryant into this video. She was the daughter of the late, great Kobe Bean Bryant. Rest in peace to Kobe.
I'm trying to get everything working, guys. Give me a second.
Taryn Frank is Giannis. Alex went crazy at our Courtside Films June camp. They called 2027 point guard Reese Austin Little Skip
device
because his dad was a legendary street baller known as Skip to My Lou, Rafer Austin. He was the inspiration for
Huh.
His dad went on to have a Hall of Fame career, known as one of the best shot blockers of all time. No.
Everything
Dikembe
figured out, huh?
Mutombo's niece is also a hooper too, and she plays for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Zaire Wade plays for the Cape Town Tigers, and he is the oldest son of Dwayne Wade. In my opinion, Dwayne Wade is a top 3 shooting guard of all time, right behind MJ and Kobe. I will accept Allen
Oh
Iverson.
my
too.
god.
This clip of Swaggy P's son is pure gold. You can tell that confidence runs in the family.
I fucking hate sneezes, dude. Especially when they fucking come out of nowhere. Good god, mighty fuck. Where did all the shit that I was looking at before go? Really? There's some interesting shit. What? Well, what happens when sharks swim too close? Huh?
What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Pablo, your favorite soul boy. Y'all already know what it is and what it ain't. Today I'm here with my third video, Hood Pablo 9. The fighters today are competing for the chance to win $800, man. Y'all already know what it is and what it ain't. We just gonna get tuned into this video. Let's do it. Today we here with our first fight. We got Chico and we got Hot. We got
Chico.
On the spot, and we gonna let them boys
We
do
got
it.
Hot.
Y'all already know what it is. It's Lit TV. It's only gonna get lit from here.
We got Chico and Hot. Okay, I don't even want to watch this.
Here we go, y'all.
Okay, no.
This is a video made with the best clips that were featured on this channel this year.
Karens.
If you like what
We're
you
gonna
see,
watch some Karens.
Consider subscribing. Enjoy.
You gonna stop in front of somebody in the middle of a fucking intersection, bro? What the fuck is wrong with people? Come back and run his ass over.
Andrew, stop. Andrew, just stop. Please, just stop. Let him go and just stop.
Psycho.
Please.
Such a psycho.
Just, Andrew. We have kids in the car.
No, I'm not from around here. Why don't you get back in your car?
That was so unnecessary. It was ridiculous. Over letting someone get over.
Whatever.
Look at that down there sitting along the river. That looks nice down there.
For stopping by. Really glad to have this guy on. I got an email which really intrigued me the other day from Chris Emery. Chris, how are you?
What?
Good to see you.
I'm great, thank you.
What?
You know, you're the former White House usher.
Okay, we're on our way out. Yeah, we're on our way out. We're on our way out. We're on our way out. Okay.
A book about it, which is called White House Usher: Story from the Inside. In fact, people can
We're on our way out.
usher.com, which is your website. Find out more about that book and your new book, novel, called Who Killed the President. Good to see you. It sounds like an easy job. To me, it sounds very complicated.
Dude, people are fucking crazy. People fucking crazy, bro. No sound in that video. That was fucking stupid.
Hey, watch this guy, eh? Dude, the guy threw a fish, man.
The dude threw a fucking fish.
Team on yellow or what?
Hell no, bro. Fuck out of here. Alright. There we go. Now we got it up and going. Let's watch some shit.
You idiot! Hey, watch this guy, eh? Dude, the guy threw a fish, man. You idiot! Kick him. Okay? Kick him. You idiot!
You fucking idiot! You fucking idiot! Nah, the fucking farm sounds. Bruh.
Show me the finger now. You want? Huh? You want a smash?
You want to smash?
Okay? Come on,
Okay.
Come on, Trey. If you have. Sir? You not what sound of your
They're pissing this man off.
Right. I follow traffic.
As just as annoying holding the horn, bro. Being the bigger man and fucking with him? Because that's being the bigger man. You're totally just fucking with the guy now, bud. The fuck? Man, sound like he had alcohol bottles in the car jingling around. No sound? What the fuck? What?
Ooh, he actually almost tried to hit me. Right? I didn't get any of that on video.
He literally can't do with his piece of shit truck.
He's still coming.
These motherfuckers are crazy, bud.
Let's see how long he gets until he gets bored.
These motherfuckers laughed though.
We are. What do you think we're doing? Look.
Okay, look. The f you see a there, you see a sign? Shut your mouth and keep driving. There's a stop sign there. There's a stop sign. I have the.
With your family, I'm not gonna.
I understand that, but for the stop sign.
If I'm on the phone and you see me,
I didn't see you.
You're not supposed to be on the phone.
But you went through.
officer.
I understand that,
so
but
you
you went
can do the
through.
one
You
stop
went through.
sign, so you
I
can
honked my
stop
horn so
sign?
you can know I'm coming.
No problem. But just
No,
No, you gotta look for us too.
I'm on their phone, you have to look for me. What?
So yeah.
You on the phone? You shouldn't be on the phone.
Dumbass.
Go on.
What the fuck? He just got behind him. Jesus.
You doing? Huh? What you doing? Get the. Why the hell do I have to wait for you? You're driving the wrong way. What the is your problem? You don't know how to drive. Stop. You wanna kill yourself? Go kill yourself. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get. Oh, you wanna be late for everybody, huh? Get the out. Oh, shut up.
Come on in. Jesus fuck. Meow. I need something you prove. Really? No audio? Aw, oh, come on, bro. Dumbass. Boy!
Holy shit! What the? He's throwing. Oh. What? The why does he get the best? I think you do, yes. This is the best. Oh my god, no. Hell yeah. Brake check so I want him to get stopped at this roundabout so I can beat his ass. Should beat his ass. What a what's your problem? You okay?
What up, Jake? No audio again? There we go.
Come on. Move your ass.
Oh! What happened? What is wrong with that guy?
I don't know. I'm not sticking around to find out.
That's crazy, bro. This man fucking dumping, bro. What up, bro? On the highway, dog?
What are you doing? Let's go. What are you doing? Come on, get out of the highway. Yo, come on. You can't stop here. You can't stop here. I didn't hit you. What are you doing?
What the fuck?
Jesus Christ.
People fucking crazy.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Oh, get out of the car.
Get back in your car, sir. Get back in your car, sir.
Come on. You want some?
I would like you to get back in your car. Motherfucker. You need to calm down.
Oh, what's up?
Get back in your car.
Shut the fuck up!
Light's green.
Shut the fuck up!
Wow.
You're in front of your kids, motherfucker.
Wow. You're on camera, by the way. Good job.
Motherfucker would have got shot coming up to my car like that. Be careful whose car you approach, bro. Especially like that. You can get shot real fucking quick.
Are you bro? Careful. No, I'm getting BVRL242. Call the cops. Please.
Are you following him?
Yes. Call the police.
What do I call 911?
Yeah.
Who do I call? 911? What the fuck?
Be careful.
No, call the police, please.
I am.
Got you on webcam and I'm calling the cops. Wait there. I call the police, please.
I am. It's calling. Baby, the dogs are flying.
Fine. Call the police.
Hi, John. I'm calling 911. Hi. What do I say?
What do I say? Oh my fucking god.
They made me drive over the
median in the road. We're following them on the highway. Yeah, we're
Yes, I'm
following
right in front. I'm right in front of him on the highway. I've got him on dash cam.
What a useless co-driver. What do I do?
Go onto the
Who am I calling? 911? No, shit.
My whole car went right over the curb in order to avoid this collision, and I have it all on dash cam. And he's driving extremely erratically. Right now, he's in both lanes. He's trying to brake check me. I had to reverse on the on-ramp to try and follow him, and then he went back.
Okay. The police are going to handle it.
Cops will see you at your house, bud. Got you all on dash cam too.
Okay, where are you going?
Turning around.
Oh, okay. Let's go this way. He'll think he's away now.
Wow. Simba, what the fuck is your problem? Me too.
Oh, look at his map.
That's crazy. Jesus Christ. Oh man, this one's got music way too loud. Shut up on the music. What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing, dog? What the fuck? People are crazy as hell, dude. Now you're gonna ride up on his ass, and he didn't even... Jesus. Alright. Enough of the soundless fucking videos. Let's find some good shit. Let's see here. Dynamite and on DJ Moore trade. Huh. What the hell? Karens who got owned and humiliated. Huh. Street racers trolling police. Armed robbers versus Navy SEAL. Best fails of the year. Cameron Peoples. Huh. 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 Mustang 5.0 takes on mighty Arkansas State Police. 24 hours in floating tent at sea. Huh. Seattle Seahawks wide receivers DK Metcalf competes in 100-meter race. Be crazy, dude. Be crazy for that. 17,000 feet. Hell no, homie. You can't arrest me. Yeah, let's check this out.
Life villains at bay, but no system is unbreachable, and sometimes the nightmares slip through the cracks. Join us on our Jail Marathon, a compilation of some of the craziest prison escape stories ever. From intricate plans of escape to lucky twists of fate, these stories have all the ingredients to leave you speechless. Think some of these sound impossible? Guess again. Welcome to jail.
Inmate and jail officer fell in love.
It
And
was an early
what?
morning on April 29th, 2022.
What?
And Vicky White was getting ready to put her plan into motion. She had given it much thought in the past few months, and now she was finally ready to do it. At 56 years old, Vicky White was working her last day on the job as an assistant director of corrections in Lauderdale County, Alabama. 17 years. That's how many years Vicky had spent as a corrections officer. During her career, Vicky won the Employee of the Year award 4 times, and she was set to win a 5th time for this last year of service. To anyone who worked with her, from other officers to Lauderdale County District Attorney Chris Connolly, Vicky was nothing short of an exemplary officer. Her work as an assistant director at the prison proved it. But in reality, Vicky White had a secret. After an unsuccessful marriage that started in 2002 and ended in 2006 because of drug use and abuse, and after her ex-husband's death in January 2022, Vicky was finally in love again. But to say the woman had an unconventional taste in romantic partners is an understatement. The new recipient of her love was Casey White, one of the inmates at the prison, one of the people Vicky was supposed to supervise and prevent from engaging in any further criminal behavior. In 2022, Casey White was 38 years old and already a prison connoisseur. The man had a long criminal record, which underlined his ruthlessness. Casey served his first stint in prison back in 2012, when he got a 3-year prison sentence for beating his brother in the face and head with the handle of an Axe sledgehammer. But not even serving time was enough to make Casey a good, law-abiding citizen. In March 2016, he got an impressive 75-year prison sentence for 7 counts that included attempted murder and robbery. Only 4 years later, Casey confessed to an investigator for the 2015 stabbing death of a 59-year-old woman. Upon his confession, Casey was charged with 2 counts of capital murder and transferred to a detention center in Lauderdale County. That's where the criminal met Vicky White. There was nothing charming about Casey White, at least not to most people. The man stood 6 foot 9 inches tall and had his entire body covered in tattoos, some of them which were clearly white supremacist symbols. Even more, he was one of those prisoners who were deemed especially dangerous. Even armed officers were told to be more than cautious when approaching him. But the heart wants what it wants. Or perhaps in this case, Vicky White's heart was manipulated and coerced into caring for Casey White. We'll never know.
How you doing, Earthy
What
boy?
we do know is that the two of them, the seasoned corrections officer and the dangerous prisoner, started a romantic affair. Maybe the two of them thought their shared last name wasn't a coincidence, but a divine sign that
Yeah,
they
my
should
boy
be together.
Simba. What up,
There are
Ashton?
no
How
exact
you doing,
details
brother?
about who initiated the
How you
romance,
been?
but it's
How you
obvious
been,
which
brother?
one of them had more to gain out of it. Vicky made sure Casey had more than enough food and peace, and then the woman made sure Casey would
Nice,
be free,
nice.
using her position and her wits
This man
to
gonna fall
engineer and
asleep like
facilitate
this.
a dramatic prison escape. At about
He gonna fall
9:30
asleep like
a.m.
this,
on
standing
April
up and
29th,
everything.
2022, Vicky White ordered her subordinates to prepare Casey White for transport from the county jail in Florence,
Damn,
Alabama,
son.
to a courthouse for a mental evaluation. After the evaluation, she told the other deputies she would seek medical attention because she wasn't feeling well. As the assistant director of the jail, the woman was very well aware of protocol. She knew transporting an incarcerated person alone was against protocol, but she had already thought it out. In order to ensure she'd be the only officer available for this alleged transport to the courthouse, Vicky had scheduled a van transport for that morning. Hence, several deputies had left minutes earlier with 2 vans transporting a dozen inmates, just before Vicky announced to her subordinates she'd transport Casey White to his mental evaluation. Nobody dared question the woman because of her position in the prison hierarchy. Casey White was fetched shortly after. Nobody knew
When?
about the romance.
Right now?
But in the months prior to the escape, Vicky and Casey spoke on the phone over 900 times. Most of these calls were sexually explicit. Their romance wasn't merely budding, it was already well established. Dressed in a black jacket and black pants, Vicky White held the door open so a handcuffed and shackled Casey White could emerge out of the prison. The differences between the two of them were striking. 56-year-old Vicky was only 5'5" and had long blonde locks framing her face. Casey White was 6'9", dressed in an orange prison outfit and covered in tattoos.
Jesus.
His brown hair was shaved. Once Casey shuffled to the back seat of the patrol cruiser,
And the
Vicky
fucking
drove the
kid
car
behind
away.
him.
But there was no mental evaluation plan for the day. It had all been a part of Vicky's carefully crafted plan to whisk Casey away from the prison. Not even 10 minutes after they departed from the prison, Vicky stopped the patrol cruiser at a shopping center parking lot in Florence. The couple exited the car. Vicky left her jail keys and her radio inside the car. She uncuffed and unshackled Casey. Together, they ditched the vehicle and started making their way further down the path of freedom. When they failed to return to the prison, the other deputies working that day started to grow suspicious.
That sounds good.
The patrol car was found abandoned in the parking lot at about 11 a.m. Officers called and called Vicky White, but to no avail. Soon, everyone at the prison found out that there had been no mental evaluation planned for the day. They had to face the truth. Casey White had escaped, and Vicky White, the prison's assistant director, had something to do with it. At first, Vicky's coworkers feared that the woman had been coerced and threatened in order to help Casey. But as authorities feared the worst and started their investigation, Vicky and Casey couldn't be happier. They had gotten to their getaway car, a copper-collared Ford SUV that Vicky had purchased only days before, using an alias, and were now on the road, fleeing the state. Money wasn't an issue. Vicky had made sure of this too. In the weeks leading up to the escape, the woman sold her home in the tiny town of Lexington, Alabama, for $95,550. The sum was less than half of the house's market value. With tens of thousands in cash, Vicky could also insure some other necessities. After arriving in Williamson County, Tennessee, about a 2-hour drive north of Lauderdale County, Vicky and Casey abandoned the copper-collared Ford. The car was then found locked and abandoned. A tow truck driver transported the vehicle to a local tow lot, unaware of its origin. By 3:30 p.m. on April 29th, officials knew for sure that Vicky and Casey White were missing. In the initial official statements, Vicky was described as missing and endangered. But on May 2nd, a warrant was issued for the woman, charging her with permitting or facilitating an escape in the first degree. On May 3rd, Vicky and Casey were found in Evansville, Indiana. They drove in a Ford F-150 to a car wash in the city and then abandoned the car on the premises. They had another vehicle ready. This time they drove away in a Cadillac. On Monday, May 9th, 2022, a task force from Alabama descended on Evansville and teamed up with the deputies and marshals in Indiana. They were going to capture the fugitives once and for all. They scouted the area, but it wasn't until later that day when they found out the fugitives' whereabouts. Evansville detective Darren Richardson was driving home when he spotted the Cadillac in a motel parking lot. He got the license plate and tipped investigators. Vicky and Casey had paid a homeless person to use their identification in order to rent the motel room. Casey White was at the wheel. The car drove away. What happened was like a movie-like car chase. But it all stopped when a law enforcement official rammed the suspect's vehicle, sending it into a ditch. No one knows exactly what happened then, but when police reached the Cadillac, Vicky White had been shot in the head. Casey asked officers to help his wife, repeating that he didn't do it. It is unclear whether he was trying to further confuse officers by calling Vicky his wife. Vicky White died shortly after. Her death was ruled a suicide. Perhaps she couldn't imagine spending the rest of her life on the other side of bars. As for Casey White, the man was arrested. After 11 days on the run, his escape was to an end. He was transported back to Alabama. He was then transferred to the William E. Donaldson Correctional Facility in Bessemer, Alabama. In addition to being charged with escape in the first degree, he was also indicted for felony murder in connection to Vicky's death. Casey White's trial is expected to begin on April 17th, 2023. Back in 2018, Fayed staged a spectacular escape, a tour de force which baffled authorities and turned Fayed into somewhat of a gangster superstar. It was a Sunday morning in July 2018. While some attended Sunday service, others, namely Red One Fayed, were getting ready for a show-stopping prison escape. Fayed wasn't a mere petty criminal. He was somebody in the world of crime, a seasoned gangster who took pride in his so-called craft. At 45 years old, the man has spent his entire life involved in some type of illegal activities. Red One Fayed was born in 1972 in France to Algerian immigrant parents. He didn't have an easy childhood. In 1988, his father abandoned his family and left Fayed's mother to care for 11 children. 3 years later, Fayed's mother died of cancer. Red One Fayed had always loved cinema, particularly gangster movies. When he was a child, awe-filled by the action-packed thrillers he would watch, Fayed swore he would either become a policeman or a thief. At only 19, he was already a delinquent, and so were his brothers. They all worked together toward a life of crime. Red One Fayed's first big robbery took place in 1990, when he was still a senior in high school. After robbing a bank, he switched to hijacking and robbing armored vans. At that point, he didn't have big plans for the stolen money. Instead, he used the money to impress his friends. Fayed wanted to look like he was used to leading a flamboyant life. He wanted to be one of the smooth gangsters he adored when he was a child. In the mid-90s, the man led a criminal gang responsible for everything from armed robbery to jewel theft and extortion. After spending 3 years on the run, Redwan Fayed was arrested in 1998 and sentenced to 30 years in prison. He was released on parole only 10 years later. Once he was released, Fayed wrote a book about his experiences, claiming he was a changed man. 2 years later, in 2011, Fayed was back in prison, this time with the nickname Levrikhan, the Rider. But Fayed didn't entirely agree with his new 8-year sentence. Sure, he was in fact guilty of planning an armed robbery that had claimed the life of a policewoman, but this didn't mean he had to suffer too, right? That's why, in 2013, he used explosives to blast through 5 prison doors, while also taking hostages with him. Fayed fled the prison using a getaway car, but authorities caught up with him 6 weeks later. And this time around, they weren't going to let him escape. Or so they thought. On July 1st, 2018, Redwan Fayed was serving his new sentence in the Sud Francilion prison in Rayu, in the Paris region. The stunt he'd pulled back in 2013 by breaking out of jail had gotten him 10 years imprisonment. 18 more years had been added to his sentence for masterminding the 2010 armed robbery in which a young policewoman was killed. This time around, nobody believed Fayed had another jailbreak in him. They were wrong. Over the years, Fayed had become well liked in prison. He was always polite to his guards and fellow inmates. He always had that old-time gangster aura about him. But sometimes, the quiet ones are the most dangerous. It was an early Sunday. It was also visiting day in the Sud Francilion prison in Rayu. 45-year-old Redwan Fayed walked quietly into the visitor's room. One of his brothers, Brahim, was there, waiting to have a little chat with Fayed. Everything seemed normal. There was no sign of foul play. Despite this, prison officials were paying close attention to Fayed. For some months, there had been several sightings of drones flying over the prison. Authorities immediately had to wonder whether there was a connection between the drones and Fayed. For months, officials requested that Fayed be transferred to another facility. But by the 1st of July 2018, the man was still in the same prison, which left guards fearing for their safety. Once he got in the visitor's room, Redwan Fayed made himself comfortable and started talking to his brother. He knew attracting the guards' attention in any way would put a big dent in his plans. He had to appear unbothered, relaxed. In reality, he was probably more than excited, his body tingling in anticipation. He loved planning moments like this. In fact, he thought of himself as a bit of a filmmaker. Only he wasn't making up a story for the screen. He was altering real life, freezing time, and anticipating any problem that might interrupt his art form. While he talked to his brother Brahim, 3 other men were carrying out the master plan to help Fayed break out of prison. Earlier that morning, Stephanie Bai, a helicopter pilot who had been hired by some tourists to give a ride over the countryside outside of Paris, found himself in a dire predicament. He found himself at the mercy of 2 gunmen. The gunmen ordered him to obey their instructions, otherwise, they said, Bai's family would be in great danger. To make sure the pilot would cooperate, the gunman told him there was a commando stationed just outside his home, just waiting for the signal to hurt the man's partner and his daughter. The 65-year-old pilot gulped for air. He knew he had no choice but to follow the men's orders. The helicopter took off. Shortly after, it made a quick stop in a field. A 3rd man boarded the helicopter, but not before the gunman loaded what sounded like weapons and other equipment. Once again, the helicopter took off, heading towards Rayu. One of the gunmen told the pilot to land in a triangular courtyard near the prison's main entrance. The prison courtyard was the only area not protected by anti-aircraft netting, mostly because prisoners would use it only to enter and exit the prison. As the helicopter made its descent into the prison courtyard, guards were confused. No one was sure what was happening, not even the prison's central command. In hindsight, nobody believed anyone would be crazy enough to try to pull this kind of stunt. In hindsight, they were wrong. But then, something happened. 2 armed men wearing black ski masks, paramilitary combat gear, and ski goggles to protect their eyes jumped out of the helicopter and into the courtyard. The men threw smoke bombs and tear gas canisters at all the surrounding buildings. Meanwhile, the 3rd man remained inside the helicopter, his gun pointed promptly at the pilot's head. He ordered the pilot to hover the helicopter above the courtyard. Then, they waited. Meanwhile, the 2 other gunmen used a power saw to open the door leading into the prison building. They both had rifles and were ready to use them at any time. In a matter of minutes, one of the men entered the visitor's room. Fayed followed him. Together, the two men made their way out of the prison building. Nobody dared to prevent them from leaving the building. In fact, nobody was there, not even one guard. Once Fayed got to the helicopter, he knew he had to do one last movie-like gesture. He turned toward the prison and saw two people, a guard and an inmate, watching him from behind a window. Smiling like one of his beloved old-time gangsters, Fayed put his right hand to his temple into a mocking Air Force salute. Then, he was gone. A massive manhunt ensued, involving more than 3,000 French police officers. Redouane Fayed spent 3 months on the run before he was eventually caught. He was arrested on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, at around 4 a.m. local time. Perhaps his sentimentality was what gave him away. French special forces found Fayed in an apartment located in Creil, a city in the northern suburbs of Paris and Fayed's birthplace. After he was finally caught, Redouane Fayed was immediately taken to one of France's most secure prisons and placed in solitary confinement. Fayed still won, in a sense. His devotion to becoming a movie-like gangster was rewarded in 2018, shortly after he was arrested. French director Pierre Morel, best known for directing Taken, revealed his intention to direct a Redouane Fayed biopic.
That's cool.
The Escape of Pascal Payet is an incredible true story that shook the world. It's the story of a daring jailbreak in 2001 when convicted criminal Pascal Payet orchestrated his own escape from a maximum security prison in southern France. With only one accomplice and no outside help, he managed to break out of a facility that had been considered escape-proof for decades. His daring plan was full of clever adaptations and ingenious improvisations, making it one of the most daring prison escapes in modern history. This is the story of Pascal Payet's incredible jailbreak, a thrilling tale of intrigue, determination, and sheer audacity. The prison in the village of Louigny in the French department of Bouches-du-Rhône is a place steeped in history. It stands as a reminder of a cruel past when prisoners were punished and disciplined with harsh methods. The building has seen many changes over its more than 2 centuries of operation, but the underlying principles of incarceration remain virtually unchanged. The prison has been used to incarcerate criminals, political dissidents, and wartime prisoners over the years, providing an important insight into how European justice systems operated prior to more modern times. This imposing structure, built with the latest technology and security measures, was once considered the most secure prison in the region, with a reputation for being virtually escape-proof. However, this all changed when the daring escape of Pascal Payet, who became the first prisoner in the history of the Louigny prison to break out. His daring feat captured the imagination of the public and put spotlight on the prison, which was now seen as vulnerable and in need of improvement. The escape of Pascal Payet sparked a heated debate about prison security and the effectiveness of the current system. Pascal Payet is a notorious French criminal known for his spectacular helicopter prison breaks. Pascal Payet was born in the bustling city of Montpellier in France, where he spent his childhood years surrounded by the sights and sounds of the city. However, his family soon moved to the charming city of Lyon, where he spent his formative years. It was here that Pascal Payet first encountered the rough and tumble world of crime, which would later shape his life in ways he never could have imagined. As he grew older, Pascal Payet made his way to Marseille, where he fell in with the wrong crowd. In 1988, he was convicted of a violent crime and sent to prison. Undeterred by his experience behind bars, Pascal Payet continued down the path of crime and was convicted again in 1993 for conspiracy. He participated in a daring attack on the Banque de France armored car in Salon-de-Provence, during which a guard was tragically killed. Despite the severity of the crime, Pascal Payet continued to evade the authorities until he was finally arrested along with Eric Albareno in Paris in January 1999. From that moment on, Pascal Payet's life would never be the same.
Eric
He
or
was
Eric?
sentenced to a long prison term and locked up in some of France's most secure facilities. However, even behind bars, Pascal Payet continued to make headlines, becoming the first prisoner in French history to escape not once, but twice. Pascal Payet first made headlines around the world in 2001 when he escaped from prison. It was a daring and audacious escape that sent shockwaves across France. Payette had been serving a 30-year sentence for terrorism and murder, but managed to break out of jail using a hijacked helicopter. This spectacular escape involved him being picked up by an accomplice and airlifted away from the prison grounds. Payette then became a legend overnight, making appearances on television shows and in newspapers across the world. In France, he was celebrated as a heroic figure by some people who viewed him as a revolutionary freedom fighter. His escape spawned an international manhunt with police putting out warrants for his arrest. Payette's freedom, however, did not last long. In October of the year 2003, one of his accomplices, Mpoko, was captured and hauled in for questioning in Paris, as the authorities were anxious to keep Pascal behind bars. He was eventually spotted and arrested in the same year while visiting a friend in Spain. However, Pascal's determination was not easily thwarted. In April 2003, Pascal masterminded yet another daring helicopter escape, this time freeing Franck Perletto, Michael Valero, and Eric Albareo from the Luenia prison. The three men had been arrested with Pascal in 1999, and he was determined to help them escape to freedom. In a daring operation, the four of them were whisked away by a helicopter, and the authorities were once again left stunned. However, their freedom was short-lived, and they were caught again 3 weeks later. In January 2005, Pascal was sentenced to 30 years in prison for murder of a guard which took place in 1999, along with the 1997 armored car hijacking in Salon de Provence. Despite being behind bars, Pascal was not content to sit quietly in his cell. In December 2005, he published an open letter in his blog entitled The Saga of My Transfers, in which he criticized the condition of his imprisonment. He had gone on a hunger strike at a prison in Metz in protest against being transferred 9 times in 30 months. His letter was a powerful statement against the harsh conditions of the prison system, and it drew attention to the plight of prisoners like Pascal. By the year 2007, Pascal Payette was one of the most infamous and closely watched prisoners in France. He had earned a reputation as a daring and cunning criminal, and as a result, he was never kept in the same prison for more than 6 months. To ensure his safekeeping, Pascal was a prisoner who was kept in solitary confinement and was subject to heightened surveillance. Despite the stringent measures taken to keep him behind bars, Pascal kept on planning another escape. On July 14, 2007, the country was celebrating Bastille Day, a national holiday that commemorates the storming of the Bastille prison in 1789. It was on this day that Pascal and his accomplices executed the most audacious prison break in French history. It was a dark and stormy night in Grasse, France, when all of a sudden the peace was interrupted by a loud roar of a helicopter. In the heart of the celebrations, 4 masked men hijacked a helicopter from Cannes Mandelieu Airport and made their way to Grasse Prison, where Pascal was being held in solitary confinement. Prison guards sprang into action, rushing to the roof of the high-security facility to investigate the commotion. The helicopter swooped down, and in a daring move, Pascal was snatched from his cell and whisked away to freedom. Despite the valiant efforts of the guards, the operation was over in just 5 minutes. And the 43-year-old Payette, who was still serving a 30-year sentence for the murder during an armored car heist in 1999, was nowhere to be found.
This man got
the
out
helicopter
twice?
then landed in the
3
town
times?
of Brignol, where Pascal and his accomplices fled the scene. The pilot was released unharmed, but the authorities were left stunned. 2 days after the daring escape, a European arrest warrant was issued against Pascal Payette. News of his escape spread like wildfire, and people across the country were in shock. A nationwide uproar resulted in Pascal Payette's prison break, and the manhunt for him was one of the largest in French history. Pascal Payette's daring and dangerous escapades were finally brought to a halt in September 2007, when he was captured in the town of Mataró, near Barcelona, Spain. He was transferred to French custody along with his 2 accomplices and imprisoned in a secret location for security reasons. In June 2008, the criminal court of the Alpes-Maritimes department sentenced Payette to 15 years in prison with no chance of early release for a series of armed robberies and assaults against police officers
Only
during
15?
his time on the run. And in April 2011, the criminal court of Bouches-du-Rhône added an additional 5 years to Payette's sentence for his 2007 prison escape. His accomplices also faced years in prison, while some other prisoners deemed complicit in the escape received lesser sentences. Despite his infamous reputation, Payette's incredible escapes and criminal exploits had profound effect on the French criminal justice system and on the entire nation. As people were left in awe of his audacity and cunning, his daring feats captured the attention of many, and his story was subject to numerous TV shows and articles. The
Yeah, that's
Netflix
fucking
original
crazy.
White Rabbit Project even featured an episode on
How
it,
you doing,
where
Seth?
host
How you
Grant
doing?
Imahara narrated the story while it was reenacted by French actor Thierry Bourard. Payet's story remains an inspiration for
I think
those
some
who
of them
admire
were fucking
daring and
paid
fearless
off, to be
individuals.
real with you.
His legacy as a criminal mastermind and a man who dared to challenge the limits of the
That's
law will
crazy,
live
right?
on forever.
Like, what?
However, his captivation with freedom ultimately proved to be his downfall, as he was brought to justice for his crimes and forced to pay the price for his life of crime. Penedo Jail is a correctional facility located
you never
in the
know,
city
bro.
of Penedo, Alagoas, Brazil.
Some
The
of these
jail was built in the
motherfuckers be
early
working
20th
together,
century
you know?
and was originally intended to house a few hundred inmates, but it has since become severely overcrowded, with a capacity for approximately 150 inmates, but at times holding over 500. The conditions inside Penedo Jail are notoriously harsh, with reports of overcrowding, violence, and poor sanitation. Inmates are crammed into small cells with limited access to basic necessities such as food, water, and medical care. Some inmates reportedly sleep on the floor or in hammocks with no beds provided. Due to overcrowding, violence is also a significant issue inside Penedo Jail. Inmates are often forced to join gangs for protection, and fights and riots are a regular occurrence. The lack of staff and resources has also made it difficult to maintain order and prevent violence from escalating. However, it was in 2012 when Penedo Jail gained popularity, not only in Brazil, but all across the world.
You want to tonight, Seth?
What's even more fascinating is that the recent surge in the prison's popularity was not due to any upgrades or changes in its policies, but because one inmate, Ronald Silva, tried to make a
you are,
run
man.
for it in his
Sorry
wife's
for the late
attire.
response. I was kind of
Deep inside the
drowned
walls of
in the
Penedo prison, Ronald
video,
Silva
you know?
sat on his bed, staring out of the small barred window. He had been there for months now, ever since his last failed escape attempt, and he was starting to feel like his life was slipping away from him. He had always been a man with a plan, a man who could think on his feet and make things happen.
the man
But
with
here,
the plan, huh?
inside these
Yeah, that's why
walls,
you're in fucking prison,
he was
right?
just another inmate.
'Cause you're the man with
another
the
number
plan.
in a sea of criminals. But Ronald was not the kind of man who would give up. He was determined to escape, to leave this place behind and start a new life on the outside.
I'm determined to
As he
get
sat
fucking
there,
caught.
staring out the window, he began to formulate a plan.
Shit.
He knew that he couldn't just try the usual escape. He needed to do something different.
Don't tell me this man
Something
built a
no one
fucking
would
tunnel.
expect. And
This
that's
man-
when he had his epiphany.
Jesus.
He would escape dressed as a woman. It was crazy. It was risky.
What?
But it might just work.
What?
He could see it all in his mind's eye.
This man's gonna
walking
escape
out of the
dressed
prison
as a
gates
female?
in a dress.
Oh, we
a
gotta
wig
hear this
on his
one.
head, and his
Gotta
arms
hear
and
this
legs
one.
shaved clean. It was so outrageous that it might
Yes,
work.
sir. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming by,
Ronald
dog.
knew
For
that
real,
he would
man.
need
For
help.
real.
He couldn't do this alone.
Greatly appreciate it.
So he decided to take help from the closest person
Be
he
back
had.
live tomorrow,
and
8
it was
p.m.
none
Eastern,
other
man. Hit
than
that
his
follow
beloved
so you can
wife.
catch me tomorrow, you know?
As soon as
Might
his
be
wife
playing some
arrived
Warzone
for
with
a
the
prison
squad
visit
tomorrow,
on the
'cause it's
day of
West
the
Coast
escape,
Wednesday, so-
she brought along an extra shirt, a wig, shoes,
Get to
and
meet some
bright
of my
red
goofy
lipstick.
squad.
Unbeknownst to her, she was about to become a willing accomplice in her husband's escape plan. With these items in hand, Silva began his transformation,
Look at
eager
that
to make a
booby
new
dough.
persona and leave his old life behind. But this was no ordinary disguise. Silva went all out to create a
Appreciate it,
convincing
Ashton.
female persona, even shaving his arms and legs to look the part. Dressed head to toe in women's clothing, Ronald had pulled off the most
Bro,
daring
what the
escape in recent memory. From a black wig to a little blue dress, he had raided his wife's closet and left everyone wondering how he had managed to pull it off. What's more, he had
Bro,
done
what?
it all with the flair and panache that would make even the most
Did they
seasoned
believe that
criminals
shit?
jealous.
They
Ronald
believe-
slipped into his wife's clothes, put on a wig, and applied makeup to his face. He looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself, but he had to keep his cool, act natural, and walk out of the prison gates without anyone suspecting a thing. As he made his way through the prison, Ronald's heart was racing. The guards were watching him, eyeing him suspiciously, but he kept his composure and played the part of a meek, obedient wife visiting her husband. When he finally made it to the prison gate, he took a deep breath and walked out into the world as a free woman. Ronald's daring and unconventional escape attempt made headlines around the world. It was
Sounds
a
good, bro.
bold
I
move
appreciate it, man,
few
seriously.
people had ever attempted before. The prison's director, Carlos Welber, later revealed that Silva had hatched his plan during his wife's weekly visit to the prison. Silva had managed to swap clothes with his wife, who left the facility wearing his Bermuda shorts and another top that she had brought in her bag. The swap went unnoticed by the guards, allowing Silva to don his wife's clothes and attempt his daring escape in broad daylight. At first, it seemed as though Silva had succeeded in his daring plan. With his wife's help, he managed to walk straight out of the prison's front gates, confident in his new guise as a woman. Silva's heart was racing as he walked towards the nearby bus station, where his accomplices were waiting on their motorbikes. It was just a few more steps, and he would be free. But then, disaster struck. A police officer spotted Silva almost instantly, remarking on his funny walking, as he hadn't quite mastered the art of walking in heels. Silva's dream of freedom was over before it had even begun. He was apprehended by the police, and his accomplices were nowhere to be found. It was a crushing blow for Silva, who had gone to such great lengths to plan his escape. At the end, he was promptly taken back to the prison while still wearing his elaborate disguise. In a statement to the press, Carlos Welber, the prison's director, explained how the officer had become suspicious of Silva's unusual gait and demeanor, which gave him away. The officer's quick thinking and swift action prevented Silva from enjoying his successful escape for more than 30 minutes, and he was promptly returned to Pinedo Prison to face the consequences of his failed attempt. According to Carlos Welber, the director of Pinedo Prison, there was a significant amount of preparation and premeditation that went into Silva's daring escape attempt. In an interview with Brazil's Globo G1 website, Welber expressed shock and disbelief at the audacity of Silva's plan. It was a crushing blow for Silva, who had risked everything for a chance at freedom. But it was also a testament to his demeanor and ingenuity. After all, not many prisoners would have thought to take DIY disguises to such an extreme level. Silva's wife later admitted to swapping clothes with her husband, but claimed she had no idea why he wanted them. According to Carlos Welber, the prison's director, Silva's wife said that it was her husband who had demanded her clothes, and she complied with his request. However, the authorities were skeptical of her story and suspected that she may have been more involved in Silva's plan than she let on. The repercussions of Ronald Silva's daring escape attempt were left far and wide. It had left the prison authorities red-faced and with egg on their faces, as they were now forced to come to terms with the limitations of their security measures. They were now scrambling to reevaluate and improve their systems to prevent any future escape attempts. The daring escape took place during visiting hours, with scores of family members present, oblivious to the unfolding drama. The chaos and confusion must have been palpable as Silva made his way through the crowded prison in his wife's clothes. However, his plans were soon foiled when the eagle-eyed police officer spotted his suspicious behavior and intervened. Despite Silva's best efforts, he was apprehended and brought back to the prison, where he was met with the full wrath of the authorities. He was quickly brought to justice and made an example to deter any future escape attempts. The incident left a lasting impact on the prison and its security measures, prompting a thorough review and revamp of its systems. The safety and security of the inmates and visitors were paramount, and no stone was left unturned in their quest to ensure that such an incident would never happen again. Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Crazy. Crazy. What the fuck? Stupid thing. What the fuck? Alright,
Starting off this countdown, we have the Man in the Iron Mask. The Man in the Iron Mask is the name given to an unidentified prisoner arrested in 1669 or 1670. He was imprisoned during the reign of King Louis XIV of France. Now, what's so scary about this prisoner is how his identity was always kept unknown. He was forced to wear a mask that blocked off his face. Some say he wore a black velvet mask, while others reported that it was a full-on Iron Mask. Apparently, the guards were ordered to shoot this man if he ever removed the mask. On top of that, he was kept in solitary confinement with double doors. He spent the rest of his life there until he died on November 19th, 1703. In our 8th spot, we have Ian Manuel. In 1990, when Ian Manuel was only 13 years old, he shot a woman in the face, blowing out part of her jaw during a robbery. Thankfully, she survived, but as a result of his crime, he was tried and convicted as an adult. As a result, he was sentenced to 65 years in prison. He was one of the youngest inmates in the Tampa State Penitentiary. Manuel spent 15 plus years in isolation, making him the longest serving inmate in solitary confinement in Florida. Eventually, he was released after the woman he shot actually fought for his freedom, claiming everyone does dumb things when they're young, and she didn't want him to waste his life in jail. In our 7th spot, we have Ian Brady. Between 1963 and 1965, Ian Brady and his accomplice tortured, abused, and killed 5 individuals. They would bury their bodies on the moors outside of Manchester, which gave them the name the Moors Murderers. The crimes they committed were horrific, and Brady expressed no remorse. As a result, he was held in solitary confinement. His only contact with the outside world was through letters. It's said that on his free time, he would memorize whole pages of Shakespeare and Plato and then recite them to himself. He would also often interact with television programs. Brady died in prison on May 15th, 2017 at the age of 79. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have Dennis Rader. Between the years of 1974 to 1991, American serial killer Dennis Rader took the lives of 10 individuals. In 2005, he was convicted for his crimes, and now he's facing 175 years in solitary confinement without the possibility of parole. Now, Dennis likes to go by the name BTK, or the BTK Strangler, which stands for bind him, torture him, and kill him. So that says a lot about who this guy is. But thankfully, he is locked away and has no chance of escaping. To this day, Dennis is considered one of the most diabolical serial killers in American history. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with John Massey. In 1975, John Massey got into a fight with a pub's bouncer and he shot him in the chest. At the age of 26, he was sentenced to life for murder. But while in prison, Massey managed to successfully escape 3 times. His most notorious escape was when he made a makeshift rope out of sheets and a pair of heavy-duty gloves to climb over the prison wall. As a result of his escapes, he was placed in solitary confinement. He was allowed 15 minutes outside of his cell each day and had only 8 minutes for a phone call. Other than that, he was kept locked away. He is considered one of Britain's longest-serving prisoners. He was eventually released after spending nearly 43 years behind bars. In our 4th spot, we have Thomas Silverstein. Thomas Edward Silverstein was an American criminal jailed for armed robbery in 1978. But while in prison, he committed numerous other crimes. In 1983, he killed a prison officer who he stabbed multiple times. Then he murdered 2 inmates. As a result, he had to be detained in a specially designed cell at the ADX Florence Federal Penitentiary in Colorado. Due to the crimes he committed while in jail, he is considered the most violent prisoner in America. He is also referred to as America's most isolated man. Now, Silverstein was considered so dangerous that he got transferred to a federal prison in Atlanta. There he was confined in a 6 by 7 foot cell. He was constantly under surveillance. In fact, the lights in his cell were never turned off so that they could always keep an eye on him. Silverstein eventually died in prison at the age of 67. He is said to have served the longest term in solitary confinement in the federal penitentiary system. Coming in at number 3, we have Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos, often referred to as the Damsel of Death, was found guilty of killing 7 men. She claimed it was self-defense, but then later pleaded guilty to the murders. She would murder them, rob them, and then drive home in their cars. Due to this, she was named America's first female serial killer. Now, Aileen was placed in solitary confinement for quite some time, but then she started to grow paranoid. She thought that the people making her food were spitting in it. And then she also claimed that she was being attacked by a sonic weapon. As a result, she wanted the court to hurry up with her death sentence. On October 9th, 2002, Aileen died by lethal injection. Moving on to number 2, we have Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth Bathory, otherwise known as the Countess who bathed in blood, was a serial killer in Hungary back in the 16th century. It's believed that she had killed around 650 girls. She's also considered the most vicious female serial killer in all recorded history. It's believed that her husband was a big influence in her killings. Apparently, he told her to torture her servants. He said for her to pour honey all over them and then let the bugs eat them. But her killings didn't truly start until she met a witch named Anna Darvula. This witch told Elizabeth that bathing in the blood of the young would help her maintain her youth. And that's exactly what she would do. Eventually, Elizabeth was sentenced to life in solitary confinement. She was locked up in her castle's torture chamber. The windows and doors were boarded up with her inside. There was only a small hole in which food was passed in through. On August 21st, 1611, she passed away. Starting off this countdown, we have Charles Victor Thompson. On April 30th, 1998, Charles Victor Thompson got in an argument with his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. This argument left them both dead. As a result, he was sentenced to the death penalty. While waiting on death row, Charles actually managed to escape. In 2005, Charles escaped and spent 3 days on the run until he was found drunk at a payphone. He was then recaptured and placed into solitary confinement, where he waits until the day he receives the death penalty. Moving on at number 9, we have Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson was an English criminal who gained the title the most violent prisoner in Britain and Britain's most notorious prisoner. He was first arrested for armed robbery and served a 7-year sentence. Upon his release, he had a career in bare-knuckle boxing. Then, in 1988, he was convicted of conspiracy to commit another robbery. However, this time when he went back to jail, he became a more violent inmate. In fact, there were multiple times where he took inmates as hostages. He would even often fight guards and fellow prisoners. As a result, he was moved 120 times. That's right, you heard me correctly. Nowadays, he spends his time in solitary confinement, which he will probably remain until his death. In our 8th spot, we have Gary Ridgway. Gary Ridgway, otherwise known as the Green River Killer, was responsible for the murder of 48 women between 1980 and 1990. However, it's believed that he may have killed as many as 71 people. He then would dump the bodies along riverbanks in South King County, giving him the name the Green River Killer. He was arrested in 2001 and given 48 life sentences.
Wow.
Since his conviction, Ridgway has lived in virtual isolation. He was initially going to receive the death penalty, but ended up trading information about his murders to get out of it. But even in solitary confinement, people still considered him a big threat. They feared that he was studying his surroundings and looking for weaknesses, planning to attack or to find a way out. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Richard Lee McNair.
Fuck.
Richard Lee McNair received 2 life sentences after being convicted of murder, attempted murder, and burglary. In 1987, McNair murdered 1 man and shot a 2nd man 4 times during a robbery that went wrong. He is currently in ADX Florence in solitary confinement. Now, here's the thing. Richard managed to escape prison 3 different times. The first time was in 1988 when he used lip balm as a lubricant to slide his handcuffs off. Then in 1992, he escaped again. And in 2006, he escaped
make
for
sure
the
you got
last
some of these
time
laying
by
around, you know?
mailing himself out of prison.
You never
As
know
a
who the
result,
fuck you're gonna run
that's why
into
he
these
was
days.
placed
People
into
are
supervised
crazy.
prison and in solitary
Yeah.
confinement. But to this day, he's known as a master escapist. Making our way down the list at number 4, we have Robert P. Hansen. Robert Hansen was an FBI agent that sold thousands of classified documents to the Soviet and Russian intelligences. These documents outlined U.S. strategies with regards to nuclear wars, exposed developments in the military's weapons, and detailed aspects of U.S. counterintelligence programs. His espionage was considered as possibly the worst intelligence disaster in U.S. history. Robert pleaded guilty to 14 counts of espionage and 1 conspiracy to commit espionage. As a result, he was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms. He is now serving his time at the ADX Florence, where he is in solitary confinement.
In Colorado.
Now, the
I've
reason
passed that
why
place
he's
before.
in solitary confinement is because he knows way too much about highly classified materials. Therefore, he is locked away to prevent any of this information from getting further leaked. Robert will be in confinement until the day he dies.
Somebody gonna break his ass
Number
out.
3, we have Andre Chikatilo.
Look at this
Andre
motherfucker.
Chikatilo, otherwise known as the Butcher of Rostov or the
hell
Rostov
no.
Ripper,
Butcher? Oh,
was
hell no.
responsible for the deaths of 56 individuals.
Jeez,
He would lure people that he met
56?
at bus stops or train stations away to remote locations where he would then murder them. He
Hell
also
no,
had
bruh.
cannibalistic tendencies and would eat certain parts of his victims. In 1990, he was finally caught for these heinous crimes. In fact, when he was arrested, he said that he couldn't live without murder. He compared it to a first love, calling it unforgettable. Andre spent 2 years in solitary confinement awaiting his death penalty in 1994. Coming in at number 2, we have Ed Kemper. Ed Kemper, also known as Big Ed, is an American serial killer who killed 10 individuals. It all started back in 1964 when Ed killed his grandparents at the age of 15. He claimed that he killed them just to see what it felt like. As a result, he was locked away for 5 years. In 1969, he was released at the age of 21. But he didn't learn his lesson because he went on to murder 8 more individuals, one of them being his own mother. Eventually, he was convicted again and is now placed in solitary confinement. Ed is only allowed an hour of recreation a day and 3 showers every week. But Ed is apparently okay with this, since he said that he is happier in prison than he ever was as a free man. While in prison, he got the name Big Ed since he weighs around 300 pounds and is 6'9". This dude is massive. I don't know how he fits in that cell. Coming in at number 8, we have Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was sentenced to death in 2015 after he was responsible for the Boston Marathon bombing on April 15, 2013. The bombing resulted in the death of 3 people and injured around 280 others. He now spends his days in solitary confinement in ADX Florence until he receives his death penalty. But like the guard said, the death penalty is an easy way out of the crimes. Solitary confinement is the real hard punishment. Making our way down the list at number 7, we have Barry Mills. Barry Mills lived a life of crime. He was incarcerated at a young age, and from there he grew to be a brutal leader of a prison gang. This gang was huge across prisons. It resulted in numerous prison wars. In fact, he was still actively recruiting members while behind bars. Being placed into solitary confinement couldn't even stop this. Barry was placed into solitary confinement in 2002 after being one of the 40 people charged with committing 32 murders. This gave him the name the Vengeful Killer. Now, Barry is a pretty terrifying looking inmate. He would always wear dark sunglasses because his eye got damaged in a prison fight. Barry spent his time in solitary confinement until 2018 when he passed away. Moving on to number 6, we have Joseph Duncan. Joseph Edward Duncan III was responsible for the kidnapping and deaths of the Groan family. In 2005, Joseph went on a frenzy, stalking the Groan family for days before finally attacking. He killed 4 out of the 5 family members, but he is responsible for the death of many others. As a result, he was given the death penalty and is currently living in solitary confinement until the day he dies. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Joseph Lombardo. Joseph Patrick Lombardo, otherwise known as Joey the Clown, was a loan shark, hitman, and mobster. This guy had a life of crime. He started off as a jewel thief, then moved on to kidnapping, illegal gambling, and loan sharking. But none of those things got him placed into solitary confinement. In 2009, he was sentenced to life in prison for 7 mob murders, along with other crimes. He was serving his sentence at the ADX Florence, where he died at the age of 90.
In Colorado.
Mark David
ADX Florence is
I'm
crazy,
sure
apparently.
A lot of you know about him because he is the man who murdered John Lennon.
Robert Chapman.
On December 8th, 1980, Chapman waited outside of Lennon's Manhattan apartment for him to come down. When he did, he shot him 4 times in the back. Apparently, he did so because of Lennon's immense fame. As a result, he was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. He is currently held in solitary confinement in the Wendy Correctional Facility in upstate New York. The only outside interaction he gets is from his wife once a year, and and occasional visits from his sister and a few friends. He is part of the family reunion program, so this allows him up to 48 hours alone with his wife in his specially built prison home. That's where he will spend the rest of his life until he dies. In our second spot, we have the Unabomber. The Unabomber is the name given to Ted Kaczynski, as he was responsible for numerous mail bombings on innocent people. Apparently, Ted is a very intelligent individual. He skipped 6th grade, has an IQ of 167, and went to Harvard. It's a shame that he didn't put his intelligence to good use. Ted was responsible for sending 16 homemade bombs in the mail that killed 3 individuals and injured 23. As a result, he was charged with 3 counts of homicide and was sentenced to 8 lifetimes in prison. According to another prison inmate, he described Ted as being very weird. Apparently, he won't even go outside when he is allowed to. He spent 24 hours of his day locked away by will, but he was used to it and didn't mind it, since before being placed in solitary confinement, he spent his time in his 12 by 10 foot cabin.
Starting off number 10, we have Sam Mendez. Sam Mendez was part of a landmark case decision for minors in solitary confinement that even brought the judge in the case to tears. Mendez was in prison after being convicted of killing a woman at the age of 14, even though no evidence tied him to the crime. At the time he was released, he was in prison for more than 23 years, most of it spent in solitary. He was put in solitary for incredibly small offenses, like making an unpermitted phone call and using a bathroom key when he wasn't supposed to. And literally, I do worse things on the daily. But in 2019, his sentence was reconsidered after a 2016 Supreme Court ruling declared life without parole for minors unconstitutional, which gave him the chance for his case to be reconsidered. After he was released, his mother was incredibly relieved, telling news outlets that the last time she had seen him was in 2004. And unfortunately, he left solitary battling a host of mental illnesses. In at number 9, Albert Woodfox. Albert Woodfox was held in solitary for 44 years in a Louisiana prison before being released in 2016, when he was 69 years old. And after being released, he decided to speak out about the torture he had endured while living in isolation, in a book he wrote called Solidarity, My Story of Transformation and Hope. In the book and many interviews he did after, he spoke of how the hardest day was when he learned he wouldn't be able to attend his mother's funeral. In the book, he speaks of the severe bouts of claustrophobia he would endure, saying, quote, "The pain was so intense, it was so deep, I had never felt that kind of pain before. This was different from physical pain. My very soul ached," he said in an interview with The Current. In 1971, age 22, he was convicted of armed robbery and sentenced to 50 years in Angola prison, which is known for being one of the hardest prisons in America. Then in 1973, he was sent to Solidarity after being convicted for the murder of a prison guard. But in the book and in the interviews that followed, he maintained his innocence, saying that when the prison guard was found dead, him and another inmate were convicted, despite no physical evidence against them. With Woodfox believing his conviction was because he was a member of the Black Panthers and was trying to fix the prison system while he was inside. Up at number 8, Frank De Palma. Frank De Palma developed agoraphobia while he was in solitary confinement, which is a fear of going outside, and a preference for being locked in his tiny cell. After he was sentenced to prison for grand larceny, battery, second-degree murder, and attempted murder, he was sentenced to solitary when some new and young gang members were brought into the prison in an effort to separate them. And for the last 5 years of his sentence, he never once came out of his cell, saying in an interview that he would cherish the times when he would get to go outside to exercise. But one day he felt intense anxiety about being outside, and it didn't stop until he was back in his cell, saying that eventually just the thought of coming out of his cell for any reason would send him into a panic. And after that, he was sent to the psych ward for 10 months because he had developed a serious mental illness. And he still struggles even though he has been released from prison. In at number 7, Steven Slevin. Steven Slevin was thrown in jail in 2005 after he got a DWI, then spent 2 years in solitary confinement. But after his terrible treatment while inside, he was actually awarded $15.5 million in one of the largest prisoner civil rights awards in US history. After Slevin was put in prison, he was almost immediately put in solitary, and there were months where he did not leave. He was given food and medication during these periods but wasn't bathing, resulting in mold forming on his skin and his teeth to rot. Ugh, I'm not gonna lie, I kinda got chills saying that one. Like, how can someone develop mold? Like, that's just so messed up. Then after he was released, he started a case for prisoner rights because of all the atrocities he had faced while inside. His lawyer spoke more about the case, saying they were able to prove that the prison was completely indifferent to the terrible conditions he faced. And with all the evidence they had against the prison, Slevin was awarded $22 million by a jury, but after some appeals, it was settled at $15.5 million. In at number 6, Adam Capay.
Because he refused to eat. It was their fault. That's unbelievable.
In 2012, after he was charged with killing another
Unbelievable.
inmate. But there were many cries for his release after he was subjected to 4 years in isolation, as well as 24/7 artificial light. With the minister in charge of Ontario prisons stating that back in 2016, he would not release him from solitary as that was the decision for the courts, not a politician.
As
While
a
awaiting
kid.
trial, Capay served approximately 4.5 years in solitary confinement. And during his isolation, his lawyers argued these conditions constituted cruel and unusual punishment. The courts ended up agreeing, with the judge ruling that the violation of Capay's rights under the Canadian Charters of Rights and Freedoms outweighed the government charges. Capay was then released in January 29th, 2019. Halfway through at number 5, Cesar Villa. Cesar Villa spoke about his awful time while in solitary in an essay he wrote back in 2013, while he was in his 12th year of isolation at the Pelican Bay Security Housing Unit, or SHU. Villa was originally placed in solitary indefinitely after being validated as a gang member. In an essay, he wrote how being in the SHU was a cold and empty world, where the emptiness would seep into your bones, saying in the first few weeks he tried to tell himself that he could get through it. But then as the weeks went on, things got worse. He was forced to sit outside in the cold during his time in solitary, and he would stand in his underwear in the yard while he was shivering from the rain and snow coming down on him, saying that at the end of his first year, his feet and hands began to split open from the cold, and that he bled all over his clothes, food, and even in his sheets. Even saying that the facility was so strict, Band-Aids weren't even allowed, saying that he didn't realize it then, but in hindsight, his psyche was unraveling. And oh my god, after hearing that honestly might be the worst one. Oh, that is just crazy. Then in at number 4, Sarah Jo.
That's just crazy.
Even though most people that end up in solitary are men, women are not immune from this treatment. Some are even sent to solitary as a retaliation for them exposing abuse inside the prison from staff. Sarah Jo Pender was sent to prison after being convicted of murder along with her boyfriend, but later was sent to solitary confinement after she escaped from prison in 2008, leading to her being featured on America's Most Wanted. After many years in solitary, she decided to write about her time while there, with her writing about how women would come in sane but would leave completely shut down inside or hurting themselves out of frustration, saying how she witnessed her prison mates making countless attempts on their own lives with items they found around the prison. A book on her escape called Girl Wanted: The Chase for Sarah Pender was released back in 2011, but it was criticized for being pretty inaccurate. In at number 3, Ashley Smith, who unfortunately ended up passing away after she strangled herself in 2007. And a jury ended up deciding the fact that it was not a suicide, but rather a homicide, because of how neglected Smith was. And even more horribly, the prison guards witnessed the horrific event, with some even videotaping it, if you can believe it, because they were ordered to not go inside of her cell if she's still breathing, even though they could pretty clearly see what was going to happen if they didn't intervene. 2 years later, one of newly elected Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's first acts was to ask Cabinet to implement recommendations arising from the inquest into her treatment, with Smith's mother Coralie writing in the Globe and Mail in 2014 that her daughter's death would not be the last time solitary confinement would put Canadian inmates in harm's way, and that more needed to be done to stop all this. In at number 2, Reddit AMA. To spice up the list a bit, I wanted to include a Reddit AMA, where an anonymous user wrote that they were in solitary for 15 years, and said they would answer questions, with the user revealing that they were in prison because they tried to kill their stepfather, but they were put in solitary because of a gang affiliation, saying that after being released, they were able to lead somewhat of a normal life, with them now being employed as a taxi driver, but that they still struggle with PTSD from the experience and have a tendency to push others away to this day. And if you were wondering what can be done while you're in solitary, they spoke of how they tried to keep their mind active by reading, writing, and listening to the radio. But since they were restricted for the most part while inside, meaning they were only able to read law books and a Bible, then ending off saying that the silence of lockdown is mind-numbing and suffocating, and with the only noises being heard is screaming, crying, or banging on cell doors. It drove them mentally insane. Then at number 1, Keith Lamar. Keith Lamar was locked up after he killed someone as a teenager in a dispute over drugs. A few years after, he was placed in solitary and then sentenced to death after he was convicted of killing 5 other inmates during the Lucasville Uprising. He then spent 27 years in solitary confinement in a supermax prison in Ohio, isolated for 23 hours a day in a bathroom-sized room. And in all those years, he was not let outside whatsoever, and his only connection to the outside was a crack in the wall. But he's trying to change the rules in prison, as after a hunger strike in 2011 by him and some other inmates, him and others in the Ohio prison won the right to hug their family members during visits, instead of just seeing them through plexiglass, as well as being able to make phone calls. In light of the current pandemic, Lamar has been asked advice from his friends and family on how to cope with quarantine, with him telling Mother Jones that he's lucky to have a full bookshelf and a desk. But he also takes time to look inside himself by painting and doing yoga and meditations.
Number 9, not everyone's a monster. All right, let's continue on this list of the...
Alright, so... Top 10 scary possession cases. Top 10 terrifying facts you were never taught. Strangest things found in the Amityville. The Man Without a Face. Top 10 scariest, strictest countries you are forbidden from.
When it comes to traveling the world, there are so many amazing places to see. And while most of the world not only invites travelers in, but depends on it for the economy,
You talk extremely loud, lady.
out there that you are probably better off avoiding, at least for the time being. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Kennedy, and today on Most Amazing, we are traveling around the world and counting down the top 10 strictest countries you are forbidden from visiting.
Korea,
let's
of
get
course,
started.
right?
Starting us off at number 10 is Bhutan.
Bhutan.
Situated in the eastern Himalayas between China and India, the Kingdom of Bhutan is definitely one of the trickier places in the world to visit. First off, in order to even be considered for entry into this country, a special visa is required, and in order to get that visa, you have to purchase a specified package through an authorized travel agent. From there, the agency will handle the visa application, but the catch is that you must travel with a group. There is no individual travel allowed, and you are required to have a tour operator. If you manage to arrive, your electronics are promptly registered through the Bhutan's Department of Revenue and Customs, and from there is an additional $200 a day tax that is imposed, marketed as a fee to preserve the high quality tourism. Now, the good news is that out of all of the countries on this list, this one doesn't seem to be as risky to visit, but there still are a ton of hoops to jump through that make it a pretty strict destination as a tourist. Coming in at number 9, Somalia. Located in the eastern tip of Africa, this country, while not necessarily off limits entirely, is probably not a place that the average tourist is going to be heading to. For starters, in order to even be allowed to visit the country, you need to obtain a visa in advance of your arrival from the Embassy of the Somali Republic in Kenya. Now, Kenya is a neighboring country found just south of Somalia, but still, it's a lot of jumping around to get the required paperwork. And once you arrive in Kenya to receive your visa, it's not exactly straightforward either. You're required to pay in cash with the local currency, as no credit cards are accepted and no bank machines are on site to get the money out. Now, beyond that, reportedly, there are supposed to be some beautiful historic sites. However, due to the current threat of violence, kidnapping, crime, and piracy throughout central Somalia, most outside countries, including the United States and Canada's official recommendation is to not travel here under any circumstances. Coming in at number 8, Brunei. To be honest, out of all the countries on this list, this one is probably one of the safer ones to visit in general, but it still takes a bit more work to arrive than traveling to more popular worldwide destinations. In terms of clerical work, you need a special tourist visa for any stay longer than 2 weeks, and your passport has to have 6 months valid beyond the date you expect to leave Brunei. In addition, you have to register for and possess an e-arrival card prior to landing in the country and prove that you do not have any communicable diseases. If you can check all those boxes, well then, my friend, you actually can enter this country. However, just be careful, as Brunei is an absolute monarchy ruled over by a sultan who follows a mix of Sharia and English law. So if you break any of the laws, you can be subject to prison. Plus, as recently as 2019, the sultan attempted to establish the death penalty by stoning for gay people, and it is still very much illegal to be gay here. So it's not exactly the most welcoming place for many people. Let's just say that. Coming in at number 7, Algeria. Located in northern Africa, just to the east of Morocco is the country of Algeria, and it is definitely one to be wary of visiting. Firstly, as it has in common with many of the other countries on this list, there are many strict hoops to jump through to even be granted entry into the country. Aside from the usual extended visa, you must also have 6 months valid on your passport instead of the usual 3. You have to provide 2 passport photos, and you have to provide a copy of accommodation confirmation as well as an authorized invitation into the country that dates prior to your visa application, meaning it's not just somewhere you can decide to jet off to on a whim. Now, while that part may just be some advanced planning, it's only one piece of the puzzle. The big reason this place is officially stated at a high risk level to visit is because many of the bordering countries surrounding Algeria pose a great threat of kidnapping and banditry. Of course, the government of Algeria is doing what they can to protect everyone, but for the meantime, it's probably best to steer clear. Coming in at number 6, Eritrea. Located in the Horn of Africa, the state of Eritrea is absolutely not a country to be planning a trip to anytime soon. For starters, the only place you are allowed to visit with the usual visa application is the capital city of Asmara. And if you, for whatever reason, need to travel beyond that, there is a whole other application that you need to fill out. Now, to be clear, the official advice is to avoid all non-essential travel here, and that is because, well, frankly, it's a pretty dangerous place at the moment. Between the threat of violence set out by terror groups and the threat of piracy, it's somewhere that requires extreme caution. Beyond that, there is a lot of tension with bordering countries, and because of this, the military is on high alert. So truly, it is not the place to visit if you don't have to. Coming in at number 5, Turkmenistan. Located in Central Asia, the extensive process to even be considered entry into this country is enough to keep your distance. First off, before you are even able to think about visiting, this is not a country that you can decide to visit. You have to be directly invited either by a citizen of the country or by a company, and they have to submit a request to have you enter, and they have to submit a request to have you enter to the state migration service. If the request to have you enter is approved, you will then need to apply for a visa, and upon arrival in the country, there is a migration card that you have to register and pay for in order to be granted. From there, if your planned stay will last longer than days, you must notify authorities and register your visit, as well as deregister once you leave. Failure to do any of these steps can result in fines, arrest, and even deportation. Now, put aside the leaps you have to make to be allowed to enter. According to official travel advice from the government, this place is a very, very high risk due to tensions in the region with bordering countries, especially for women. So really, it's just not the place to visit. Next up in our number 4 spot, Saudi Arabia. Officially the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, this country happens to be a bit of a mixed bag of requirements depending on the country of origin the visitor is hailing from. On one hand, citizens from Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, or the UAE do not require a visa for entry and can pretty much travel freely. However, if you are coming from just about any other country, a special visa application is absolutely required. Now, beyond that, most of their limited tourism tends to be for religious pilgrimages anyways, but even if you are traveling for leisure, similarly to other countries on the list, your application must still be sponsored by a group, organization, or a citizen of the country. Plus, if you are a woman, you're not permitted to travel alone and must be met by either a male relative or male sponsor at the airport. So definitely not the girls' trip destination. But seriously, the official stance is that visiting this country is an extremely high-risk decision due to conflicts with bordering countries as well as kidnappings, so truly there are more relaxing places to choose from. Coming in at number 3, Angola. On the western side of Africa, you'll find the country of Angola, and well, once again, this is not the country at the top of my vacation list. Now, unlike some of the others on this list, the actual job of getting into the country isn't quite as difficult. It's not really forbidden to visit this place. They just require you to have a visa, a criminal clearance certificate prior to departure, proof of a return flight, and a yellow fever vaccination, none of which are out of the ordinary. But to be clear, this is a very strict requirement because if you don't have it all squared away prior to your arrival, they can arrest or deport you back to your home country.
Strictest countries you are forbidden from visiting.
Dangers associated with travel here,
not
probably
recommended
not
to visit.
While it's warned there is quite a bit of crime, especially in the capital, targeted towards tourists, including kidnapping, mugging, and carjacking. One of the scariest dangers are the landmines. Roads and bridges, both in larger cities and the countryside, are frequently targeted. And honestly, you just never know when you could come across one. So just take the official travel advice and avoid this one. Coming in at number 2, Syria. I'm sure this one doesn't come as much of a shock, considering what we know about the major conflicts that have been going on here, but of course, that is why I had to add it to today's list. If you Google the Canadian government travel advisories, this country comes up in giant red letters saying to avoid at all costs, and that if you are here, you need to leave immediately. Sadly, this is due to the threat of terror from organized extremist groups, as well as politically motivated kidnappings by these same groups that often result in disappearance or death of a victim. Beyond the already terrifying things I've mentioned, women are especially at great risk traveling here alone, and there is also a major issue with pickpocketing, mugging, and general petty theft. Plus, since 2011, most commercial airlines have suspended flights anyways, so it's practically impossible to enter, even if you tried. That being said, if you fill out the required paperwork, there is a chance you can go, but I mean, truly, this place is an active war zone, so traveling there is 100% a bad idea. And last up in our number 1 spot, North Korea. Now, I'm sure most of you knew this one was coming.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to experience a real-life paradise? Get ready to pack your bags and explore the stunning beauty of Costa Rica.
Let's go! Let's go
we'll
explore
take you on a
Costa
thrilling
Rica.
virtual tour of 15 must-visit attractions and destinations that will blow your mind away. From the mesmerizing Arenal Volcano to the breathtaking Manuel Antonio National Park,
The
you won't
Arenal
be able to resist
Volcano.
the allure of this beautiful
The
country.
anal volcano.
So buckle up and join us as we navigate through the lush green forests, sparkling beaches, and fascinating wildlife.
They don't
It's time
tell
to
you
get
how
excited
fucking
and start
dangerous
planning
that
your dream
wildlife is.
vacation to Costa Rica.
Don't dare walk up to a
Costa
monkey, he
Rica
might
is
rip
a
your dick
diverse
off.
country with many natural attractions, including beaches, forests, and wildlife. It appeals to a wide range of travelers, from bird watchers and luxury travelers
Oh,
to
hell
surfers
no.
and backpackers. While the city of San Jose has great museums and cultural attractions, real treasures are found outside the capital in the forests and coastal towns. The Pacific Coast has many beautiful beaches and towns, with Guanacaste being a particularly popular
Yo,
destination.
mom stayed in that. My mom fucking stayed in that. My mom fucking... That's awesome. I can't believe... That's awesome.
Inland, the forest-covered mountains offer adventures such as volcanoes, waterfalls,
crazy.
ziplining, and wildlife viewing. The south of the country is the best place to go if you want to see a lot of wildlife. The Caribbean coast
Shit
has
on
its
the video
own
and
unique
everything.
cultural
That's wild.
vibe and calm waters. To help you plan your trip, we have compiled a list of the top tourist attractions in Costa Rica. Number 15, Manuel Antonio National Park. Manuel Antonio National Park is situated on the outskirts of Manuel Antonio town and is a must-visit destination in Costa Rica for wildlife enthusiasts. Apart from its stunning soft sand beaches, the park offers an opportunity to spot a variety of animals such as howler monkeys, squirrel monkeys, sloths, white-nosed cotamundis, and capuchins. Additionally, you can also see beautiful iridescent butterflies and colorful birds
White-nosed
while walking the trails.
cotamungis.
Although you can explore the park on your own, you can have a more comprehensive experience by joining a guided tour. Guides possess telescopes and tripods, which can enhance your wildlife viewing and photography experience.
Look at that damn pool, though.
Another
Look at
advantage
that
of
shit.
visiting Manuel Antonio
Can't
National
fucking
Park
believe she did
is
that,
that you
dude.
can
I'm so
easily find
goddamn
hotels,
jelly.
restaurants,
That's the
and
coolest
retail
fucking
outlets
thing
in
ever.
the nearby town of Manuel Antonio. The primary hub of activity in the town revolves around the picturesque oceanfront beach. The beach attracts both sunbathers and surfers, and surf lessons are available for novices. The restaurants and stores situated across the road on the hillside can get a bit noisy in the evenings. For those seeking a luxurious retreat, Manuel Antonio is home to one of Costa Rica's top beach resorts, making it an ideal spot for an extended stay. Number 14, Arenal Volcano, the Arenal Volcano. National Park,
The anal
situated in
volcano.
the rugged Cordillera de Tilarán, is a popular spot for observing volcanoes in the country. The highlight of the park is the Arenal volcano, a cone-shaped mountain that
Cordillera
often emits
de Tilarán.
huge ash columns from its crater. From AD 1500 until a massive eruption in 1968, Arenal was dormant.
Anal
The
was
eruption
dormant.
killed 82 people and destroyed 2 villages. Since then, the volcano has been active, and visitors may witness anything from a cloud of ash to glowing red lava, depending
Oh.
on the day or week. The park is renowned for its diverse wildlife, with about half of Costa Ricans' birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals
Yeah, let's
represented
live
within
close-
its boundaries.
Let's live close
The
to the
Arenal
fucking
Observatory Lodge was established in 1987
volcano
as a
that
private
might
observatory
erupt.
and is now the only lodge located within Arenal Volcano National Park. Situated
anal
on the
volcano.
south side of the volcano on a macadamia nut farm, the lodge offers breathtaking views of both the volcano and Arenal Lake.
Oh, ain't that funny? The
area
anal
is surrounded by
volcano
a
is sitting
plethora
on a
of
nut
hiking trails
farm.
that lead to beautiful waterfalls and
Oh,
old
Jesus.
and recent lava flows. Number 13, Monteverde and the Cloud Forest.
Monteverde.
The cloud forests in Monteverde and Santa Elena are a must-visit for ecotourism
I
enthusiasts
think that's
in
where we're
Costa
gonna
Rica.
check out.
These forests are perfect for nature
some reason
lovers who want to explore unique
Sounds
plants
so
and
familiar.
wildlife without straying too far from civilization. The moisture provided by the clouds creates a perfect habitat for various animals and plants. Bird watching is a popular activity here, but you can also spot mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. Keep an eye out for colorful frogs and howler monkeys. While jaguars and pumas are more elusive, you might get lucky. Hiking and canopy tours are the ideal ways to experience the forest. The canopy tours include zip lines, bridges, and cable cars, adding to the excitement and thrill of your visit. Monteverde and Santa Elena are the primary hubs for tourism in this region, offering a wide range of amenities such as lodging, dining, and local shopping outlets, including art galleries. The location of this area is towards the northwest of San Juan and can be reached via a 4-hour bus journey. Due to the altitude, it can get chilly here, so it is advisable to carry warm clothing. Number 12, Tamarindo. Tamarindo is an ideal destination for those seeking an energetic beach town to stay in for a while. Situated in Guanacast's Nicoya Peninsula, Tamarindo has become a popular spot for surfing, beaches, and merrymaking. Once a peaceful fishing village, the town now offers a diverse selection of eateries and lodgings for tourists. The town is situated along the stunning Tamarindo Beach, a broad crescent that stretches for about 1.5 kilometers. The region is renowned for surfing, with various breaks suitable for both seasoned and novice surfers. The most significant waves typically occur in November and December. The Tamarindo region
That
is a great
shit
place for
purty.
sustainable and environmentally friendly activities,
shit purty
such
as
as
hell.
snorkeling, diving, horseback riding, ziplining,
Snorkeling?
and turtle watching during the nesting season. Playa Grande, located nearby, is an essential breeding site for leatherback turtles. From October to March, visitors can witness
said,
over 100 turtles
"Surf's
nesting and
up,
laying
bro."
eggs overnight. Number 11, Dominical. Dominical is a popular spot for
Dominical
backpackers and
Republic?
surfers in Costa
Dominical.
Rica. It's well known for its beautiful beaches, affordable
Dominical.
accommodations, laid-back
Never heard of
restaurants,
Dominical.
and bohemian atmosphere.
For some reason,
However,
something else came in
if
my
you
mind.
venture into the surrounding mountains, you'll find high-end
Oh.
resorts, small inns, and luxury rentals, catering to a more
Ooh.
affluent crowd. The town has a long stretch of beach that's perfect for lounging and
Resorts.
swimming. Local vendors set up
Will
tables
those
under the shady
resorts
trees,
be where we're
selling
staying?
crafts and other items. The town has undergone some changes in recent years, with paved roads and bricked sidewalks, making it a more upscale tourist destination. There are also quieter beaches outside of town where you can find your own secluded spot. Dominical is an excellent destination for those who wish to witness wildlife in their natural habitat without having to travel too far from civilization. Dominical is home to a variety of wildlife, including toucans, monkeys, sloths, and scarlet macaws, which can be spotted even within the town itself. Additionally, Dominical hosts the annual Envision Festival in late February or early March. This festival is centered around music, arts, wellness, and sustainability, and offers a range of activities such as yoga and other workshops. Number 10, Jaco. Jaco proves to be a great option for those seeking a change of scenery from San Jose, while still enjoying the amenities of a larger town. The beach is vast, delightful, and has a lively atmosphere. The waves are moderate, making it ideal for surfing and swimming. What makes Jocko stand out from other coastal towns along the Pacific is its modern apartments, shops, excellent dining options, hotels, and other conveniences that attract expats and retirees. With its proximity to San Jose, less than 2 hours away, Jocko is an accessible destination for those who want to get away from the city and explore nearby beaches or attractions. Number 9. Wildlife viewing. Costa Rica is a country known for its incredible wildlife and makes for a unique travel destination. Although it may not have many cultural attractions, the abundant wildlife experiences more than make up for it. Wildlife sightings are frequent, with monkeys, capuchins, scarlet macaws, and toucans easily spotted around town.
This is where we're gonna be,
there are no specific areas for
I'm gonna try to do a
sightings,
stream when I get there
visiting
too,
parks
if
or
possible.
taking tours with knowledgeable guides will increase the chances of spotting some of the more elusive species. Generally, you have a higher chance of spotting a diverse range of animals in the southern region of Costa Rica. By taking a guided walking tour through Manuel Antonio National Park, you can expect to see sloths, various types of monkeys, and several other animals. If you're looking to stay at an eco-lodge, you can stay at the OSA Peninsula or a mountainside resort around Dominical, Uvita, or Ojochal, and you're likely to encounter some wildlife. However, the northern region is not to be underestimated in terms of wildlife. Even if you're staying at downtown Tamarindo, you can easily spot howler monkeys on the trees and overhead wires along the streets. Keep your eyes open, and you're sure to come across some fascinating critters. Number 8, Tortuguero National Park. If you're looking for a unique and unconventional experience, Tortuguero National Park on the Caribbean coast is worth a visit. Accessible only by boat or plane, this region is one of the wettest in the country and offers a different experience than the rest of Costa Rica. The park is a vital nesting ground for the green sea turtle, so the main activity here is turtle watching. Although there are many beaches, the coastal area is not ideal for swimming due to rough surf and strong currents, and sharks are common. Hundreds and even thousands of green and leatherback turtles can be seen nesting and laying eggs on the beaches at night. Recent conservation initiatives have boosted the number of turtles nesting in the region. From the hiking trails or boat trips along the canals, visitors can spot monkeys, sloths, and kinkajous. Peccaries and tapirs are also present, but they are more difficult to see. Freshwater turtles, lizards, snakes, frogs, toads, and other amphibians are also prevalent in the area. Number 7, the National Theater in San Jose. The National Theater in San Jose is a source of pride for Costa Ricans. The coffee barons of the 1890s imposed a tax on coffee exports to fund its construction. Skilled European artisans were brought in to design the building, which was completed in 1897. The facade boasts classical Renaissance columns and statues of dance, music, and fame. The pink marble foyer showcases allegorical figures of comedy and tragedy, as well as murals depicting Costa Rican life. The most famous of these is Arturo Fontana's painting from Milan, which portrays coffee harvesting and export. Number 6, Irazu Volcano National Park.
Irazu Volcano National Park.
Towering at 3,342 meters, is the tallest active volcano in Costa Rica. Its peak boasts a lunar-like terrain with craters, the most prominent of which is the 1,050-meter wide and 300-meter deep principal crater. Additionally, the smaller Diego de la Haya crater, with its occasional red appearance, holds a small lime-green lake. Visitors can access these craters, along with 2 other smaller ones, through marked trails. A pyroclastic cone, formed from fragmented volcanic rock, is also visible in the area. On clear days, the summit offers breathtaking views of both the Pacific and the Caribbean. Number 5, Braulio Carrillo. National Park. Braulio Carrillo National Park is a picturesque destination located just a 30-minute drive away from the busy city of San Jose. The park offers a diverse range of features, including mountains, waterfalls, canyons, and rainforests. Due to its close proximity to the main gateway of the country, visiting the park is a convenient way to explore Costa Rica's unique flora and fauna. The park boasts a varied terrain, ranging from the top of Barva Volcano to the lowlands of the Caribbean. Wildlife enthusiasts can spot fascinating creatures such as jaguars, pumas,
Hell
tapirs,
no.
sloths, and monkeys. Additionally, the park is home to several species of birds, including the quetzal, toucans, and eagles, which are relatively easy to spot and hear. Number 4, Rincón de la Vieja National Park. The main
Rincón
attraction
de
of
what,
the
what?
park is the Rincón de la Vieja Volcano.
De la
A
Vieja?
hike to the summit is one of the most popular activities, which covers a 9-kilometer trail that passes through various ecosystems. The views from the top are stunning, and on a clear day you can even see Nicaragua and the Nicoya Peninsula. In addition to this, there are other trails that lead to waterfalls and hot springs, which are less strenuous. The park is also home to a diverse range of wildlife, including sloths, tapirs, monkeys, and large cats such as pumas, jaguars, and ocelots. Number 3, the Crocodile Bridge on the Tarcoles River. The Crocodile Bridge is an ideal
Ain't no
spot
way.
to catch a glimpse of American crocodiles. It's located just 25 minutes north of Jaco along Highway 34, making it a convenient and enjoyable stop for all. The bridge spans the Tarcoles River, which is home to a large population of crocodiles. On the north side of the bridge, there's a parking lot, along with some shops, souvenir vendors, and an ice cream stand. The bridge has a pedestrian walkway with railings on the riverside and a traffic barrier, ensuring your safety. The crocodiles are easily visible, lounging on the muddy riverbed below. Number 2, La Paz Waterfall Gardens. This nature park is a highly recommended must-visit destination. Spanning across 70 acres, it's a sanctuary for various wildlife, such as monkeys, butterflies, and hummingbirds. The park's main attraction is the stunning La Paz Waterfall, where rainwater cascades from the cloud forests, plummeting 37 meters into a pool below. With your admission ticket, you can also explore the Serpentarium, Butterfly Observatory, Jungle Cat Exhibit, and Renarium. Number 1, kiteboarding in Costa Rica. Costa Rica has become a top destination for kiteboarding enthusiasts.
Kiteboarding.
Located near the Nicaraguan border, the northwestern coast boasts strong and consistent winds. These winds flow from the Lago Cochibolca in Nicaragua down to the stunning Salinas Bay. To make the most of your kiteboarding experience, be sure to pack your full set of kites, with the 7, 9, and 11 meter sizes getting the most action. However, brace yourself for some gusty conditions. Accommodation options range from basic beachfront bungalows to more luxurious 5-star hotels like Dreams Las Mareas.
Ain't no goddamn way.
¿Sabe dónde está la casa de Pocholo? Un hombre se llama Pocholo.
¿Dónde está la señora?
So Pochulo is someone who helped me a lot. He showed me this place where they do Roomba. If you guys see the video, you'll see him in it. He also showed me the nightlife. He showed me a couple places to go at night.
Yes.
And when we did the video, Pochulo then asked me.
My tired as a motherfucker, y'all. I know it's a short one. But we calling it. Tomorrow, we're gonna be playing with a squad. Alright? I'm tired, though. I really appreciate y'all coming by. Ashton, thank you. Thank you for coming by. Seriously, dude. You fucking blew the chat up tonight. I appreciate it. I'll be back live tomorrow, though. 8 p.m. Eastern. For real. No being late this time.